we would like to welcome everyone out to our presentation today, to our class, Restaurant Success. It all starts with the menu. We have a special guest with us today, Allison, who I'll introduce in just a minute. And before we begin, I just wanted to remind everybody of some of the resources that we have in the state of Nevada here to help small business. And one of our resource partners is the State of Nevada Department of Business and Industry. And their web address is business.nv.gov. And they have a tool on there called the Roadmap. And you can see it here on the right-hand side. It's got the yellow boxes. What it is, it's a downloadable PDF, and you can click on it, and it's kind of the small business ecosystem in the state of Nevada. So whether you're looking for assistance in planning, licensing, taxation, whether you have questions on where to go for certain answers, the Department of Business and Industry's roadmap can help you on that path. So please check out their stuff at business.nv.gov. It's a great support for our small businesses in the state of Nevada, and they've been a vital help for us in our program here in helping to educate our small business customers here in Southern Nevada. So we'd like to thank the state of Nevada for helping with that. Now, today we have a great presentation. I'd like to present to you Mr. Allison. And we coaxed Andy out of retirement a bit here to come and help us with this presentation. Andy will tell you about his experience a little bit, but I was fortunate enough to be Andy's boss for a little while, and he was a great employee and just a great resource for small business and a definite advocate for anyone looking to not only start a business in the restaurant industry, but also just a business in general. And all around pretty good guy. I'll just say that, Andy. I'll throw that in there. So yeah. Anyway, so Andy, go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and good morning to everyone. My name is Allison. I started very young in the food business. When I was 6, 7 years old, I helped my dad in the meat market. Probably he wanted me to stay out of the way, but I kept getting in the way. So I've been in the food business there. I worked for Disney for a long time, worked in their, the administration part, worked in their food locations. From there, I launched out into my own businesses, had a indoor-outdoor meat market, flower market, produce market, opened up other businesses, been in the restaurant business. So I've had an extensive amount of food education, food experience, but not only that, you learn along the way. And so as we launch into today's presentation, this may be a different view from what you have thought about in the past. If you are looking to open up a food business, it is a numbers game. It is the most important thing to understand. It's numbers. If you succeed or you fail, it will be because you understand the numbers or you don't understand the numbers. Now, do you need a good food? Absolutely. A good wait staff? Absolutely. Convenience, able to pay, accept their money easily. All of those things are so important. But the one thing that trumps all of that would be the menu. And the reason that the menu is so important is because that's where your dollars come from. You're finding out that it's going to bring everything to you that you want. So as we take a look at the menu, it's going to determine who the customer is. If somebody's looking for steak and you have a fast food, you're not going to get that customer. So people are looking for whatever your marketing is, for whatever type of food service you have. That's going to determine who's coming in that night, what kind of experience they want. Obviously, somebody that's in fine dining is going to be expected to be waited upon, and that experience is based on how well you serve them versus a fast food, a convenience food. That's kind of not the case. The amount of dollars they will spend, in other words, if you have a menu cost or a menu price that's in a, if you look on Google or you look on all these food locations, they'll have a dollar mark, $1, $2 marks, $3 marks. They're telling you the expense is going to be. And so that is important for them to understand as well. The menu also meets the customer's expectations. In other words, I have a friend in New York. His name is Lee. When I go back to visit Lee, he always takes me down to the city, and we have a good time. We start off with a dinner. Dinner's usually going to cost between $300 and $400. We then go to a Broadway show. That's about $3,000. Well, Lee's a big guy, and he's going to want something to eat after the show. So there's another $200. So we figure when we go down to the city, it's going to be $4,000 that night just to enjoy New York City. Now, when he's driving me back to the airport, we stop and we go to a Perkins. Now, Perkins like a Denny's out here. And we have a breakfast there at Perkins. Now, the bill is $15. But Lee complains from the time we get into the car to get to the airport, he complains about that $15 and the service he had. He was happy to spend $4,000. He was not happy in spending $15. Why? It's because the expectations when we went to the city were met. Everything was just as he wanted it. The waitress did a few things that just made him upset. And so therefore, expectations, what the customer wants, what the customer feels he's getting, what value that does the customer look for, those are part of what makes the experience. So as we look at the menu, it's going to tell them the price point, it's going to tell them what they're going to have to eat, and it's going to set up expectations in their minds. If you don't meet the expectations, they probably won't ever come back. If you meet expectations, you probably have a potential for a repeat customer. And that's how the food business works. When somebody is in your operation, when they're in your restaurant, that is when you are prepping them for the next time they come. Whatever you do, it's going to either impact them to come again or to not come again. So again, the entire experience is extremely important, but the menu is going to drive them there to get them to the point where you can wait on them and serve them. So the food business is a money game, as I have said. Do you need good food? You do. Good atmosphere? You do. Enjoyable wait staff? You do. No question about it. But the idea of money being the issue, because if you don't make money, you don't stay in business. And there's a whole lot of things that just go wrong when you go out of business. So we're coming to the menu, the pricing of the menu, the cost of the menu items, and the profit margin that you make. Understand this formula. You have your sales. So let's say that your menu item was $10. So that's the sale. When they pay for that particular menu item, you have priced at $10. That's your sale. You're going to have to subtract the money that you paid for the ingredients for that menu item. That's called cost of goods sold, or a COGS. That is the money you have paid for those items that you are serving to your guest. It could be paper product for a napkin. It could be plastic utensils if it's to go. But whatever it is, it's costing you money to make that $10. So for example, let's say the cost of goods is $3. $3 is what it costs you to serve that menu item of $10. That means your gross profit margin is $7. Sales are 10, cost of goods is 3, your gross margin is 7, subtracting your cost of goods from your sales. You have to understand this. There is no other place in your operation, in your business, where you're able to pay yourself and you're able to pay for the bills like light, rent, everything else. It only comes from your gross profit margin. That's where all of your bill paying and being able to pay yourself comes from. So if your gross profit margin is not enough to sustain your business, you go out of business. This is where the restaurant industry is built on, is having enough gross profit margin in your menu item that you can stay in business. So if you have the best food in the world, you just have a tremendous wait staff, the atmosphere is absolutely great, all of those things so important, and they are all A+. If you don't have enough gross profit margin to pay your bills, to pay yourself, you will go out of business. So therefore, that gross profit margin and how you determine your cost of goods, how you determine your sale price, how you determine the menu items that are going to be on the menu, that is the most important thing. Everything else follows. But it would be like if you get in your car and you need to go north and you pull out of the driveway and you go south. There's no way you're going to get north going south. Here, if there's not enough gross profit margin in your business, you do not stay in business. So we're going to take a look at this, and I just want to make sure that this is understood. We're going to look at how you determine sales. We're going to look at how you determine cost of goods, because when you have those two, you're able to look at, determine, do I have enough gross profit margin to stay in business? So that's really the emphasis. Again, we also find that equipment needs, labor needs, those are also addressed in your menu. But most important, this particular sales minus cost of goods sold equals gross profit margin. If you don't get this, then you don't know whether you're going to succeed or not. So sales are usually recorded via a POS system, a point of sale system. I would recommend some sort of system that keeps track of the items sold, the menu items sold, how many, the time of day. Even basic simple cash registers today can have this particular feature. You may have to pay $700, $800, but it's certainly worth it. POS systems today, they're coming down a little bit in price, but you can still expect to pay around $2,000. There's some cheaper ones between $1,200 and $1,500, but you have to research and know what the POS system can do for you. The cost of goods, you can only determine a true cost of goods from inventory. Inventory is the amount of items that you have on hand, the dollar amount. In other words, you have $200 worth of cheese, you have $100 worth of dry stock, you have $200 worth of meat. But taking inventory is a necessity if you want a true, accurate picture of cost of goods. So let's say that you've taken an inventory of everything that you have, and this is based on cost, what you've paid for it. So if you buy beans at $1 a can, that's going to equate into $1. Everything is going to equate dollars. So the beginning inventory is a dollar amount. Then you take a look at from that beginning inventory and the purchases that you have made during the week. Now you take another inventory at the end of a week or whatever time period you have determined. If you take your beginning inventory, let's say it's $1,000, you added purchases of $400, so that's $1,400 beginning inventory and purchases, and you have $1,000 left over. Your cost of goods was $400. That's what it cost you to make the sales that you did in this one particular week. So we'll use Sunday. We take an inventory on Sunday. We have purchases on Tuesday and Friday. We take another inventory on Sunday, the following Sunday. The cost of goods is determined by the starting inventory plus your purchases minus your ending inventory. That's your true cost of goods. Now, it is imperative that you take inventory. This is why we have problems in the food industry. Most people don't take inventory. So it's really determines if you're disciplined enough to follow the numbers. I'm going to tell you how to cheat on this, not because I want to, but because I understand that we're not all going to take inventory, is take those items that are mean or impact you the most. In other words, they cost you the most. That would be meat, that would be cheese, that would be fish. Take inventories on those. The beginning inventory is certain, your Sunday, the purchases through the week, the following Sunday, and then what it costs you for those items. And you can measure up with the items that were sold. Okay, I'm in good shape, or no, I'm not in good shape. The gross profit margin comes from the sales minus the cost of goods. This is what it costs you for the sales that you had. Why is that so important? It's because you're going to have to buy the food again and over again and over again. And so we come to the point that it is so important to understand your gross profit margin is the only place you can take money to pay yourself and to pay your expenses. If there's not enough money in the gross profit margin, you are done. You are over. It's just a matter of time. Even if you keep infusing money into the business, you will be done. So that's why we just a couple of ideas about the menu. When we're starting to put this menu together, we're going to go through pricing concepts. What is it that we need to be concerned with? Recipe costs. How do we cost out recipes? How do we cost out the menu? How do we determine the menu price? And then, of course, working with your menu to maximize your gross profit margin. Now, these are areas below, these 4 actions that help you increase your gross profit margin: purchasing and receiving. If you purchase too much, you don't purchase enough, you either lose sales or you lose food. You have to know how to order. That's so important. And in receiving, so many times the product comes and it sits on the floor or it hasn't been put away. It's an absolute disaster because your food only has a certain shelf life. It only lasts so long, good quality food. And if you're ruining that quality of life for your item, you're going to have a problem as well. Food production and portion control. There has to be records so you know on Saturday you're going to produce more product for service than you are on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Why? Is because you have more business. So food production is absolutely imperative in knowing how much to prepare. Portion control. Portion control is one of those things that if you don't do, you will not do well. Why? Because it's going to affect your gross profit margin. So if you are making pizzas, well, pizzas take an awful lot of cheese. They'll take 10, 12 ounces of cheese on a larger pizza. So we take a look at, if you're putting on 15 ounces of cheese instead of your 12 ounces of cheese, your cost of goods, what it's costing you to make that menu item is going to go up. So if your cost of goods goes up, your gross profit margin goes down. So let's say that you have a restaurant, you have family members working in the restaurant, and you sell hamburgers for $1. Very good. You sell 1,000 hamburgers a week. That means your sales for that week is $1,000. Now, you have to sell that hamburger, it costs you 20 cents for the bun, the meat, the pickle, the mustard, whatever you have. So our sale item is $1. The menu item, it's $1. The cost of goods sold is 20 cents. Therefore, your gross profit margin is 80 cents. Now, we sell 1,000 of them each week. So our sales is $1,000. Our gross profit margin, our cost of goods is $200. Our gross profit margin is $800. You have $800 that week to pay yourself and to pay all of your bills. Now we find that somebody is overcooking the burgers, burning them, you have to throw those away. Somebody likes to eat hamburgers in the back. That's part of making sure your gross profit margin is good. However, between the burning of the hamburgers and between the eating of the hamburgers, you find that your cost of goods, it used to be 20 cents, but now it's 25 cents. So we sell the same amount of product. 1,000 burgers, that means at $1, our gross sales is $1,000. Our cost of goods, though, has gone to 25 cents, not 20 cents. So now our cost of goods for those hamburgers is $250. We subtract our $250 from our $1,000. Now we have gross profit margin of $750. We don't have $800 anymore. We have $750 to pay yourself and to pay all your bills. Therefore, that concept of being able to determine the cost of your product, the cost of your menu item, and to put into place those things that are necessary to make sure that you have that same cost of good so you can plan on that same gross profit margin. So important to understand, everything that you do will impact that gross profit margin. Inventory and organization of your storage areas, your coolers, your freezers, your dry stock, so important to be able to keep track. So many times the product is received, it's thrown in a place where somebody's not going to look who's going to actually be cooking. They can't find it. You scratch the menu item, the product goes bad because nobody knows where it is. Again, the restaurant business is a disciplined business. And then to monitor theft potentials. Sorry, but that's life.
And through the presentation, I find it so important. There's a difference if I sell, 1,000, but I know that it costs me, 20 cents to make that item. And then you ask me, okay, how much is my gross profit? I'm gonna the simplest way to do it is just multiply my sales, but against what I think it costs me the food. But that's very different when you actually count the inventory, because on the first way, you're only considering the sales and assuming the cost. But if you actually count the inventory, now you're gonna take in consideration all the waste and anything that it was misuse or theft. I think that's very, very important on what makes a difference in actually doing an inventory count or not. I love that point. You make it very,
Yeah.
very simple and important to do that.
And in a restaurant, whether it's theft or whether it's things that are being burned or spoiled or whatever, it's almost akin to, in a retail business, having somebody's drawer be off, right? So at the end of the day, you come in, you're like, hey, we're supposed to have 100 burgers in the freezer left, and we only have 80. Where are the other 20, right? Where did they go? And your employees may go, hey, I don't know, there you go. It's part of life, though. And Andy, I know oftentimes in normal business situations, we always say there's 3 ways you can increase your bottom line, right? You either and one of those is controlling costs, and that is a major function in running a restaurant, is controlling your costs.
Again, both of you make extremely strong points, is the fact that there is a right and wrong way to run a restaurant. And so not knowing your cost basis, not knowing your gross profit margin, but trying to guess or trying to, in some way, rationalize that this is what's going on. Absolutely wrong. The definitive way of knowing your business is to be principled and disciplined to do the things, because you cannot determine gross profit margin unless you take inventory. Now you can, as Juan so aptly reminded us, well, I know that this is basically my gross profit margin, and so I'll assume that that's my number. Wrong assumption, doesn't work. Again, inventory is absolutely the necessity of knowing your cost of goods. So good points, absolutely great points.
In one of your presentations, I remember one time you said, do you know where to look for savings in your restaurant, where to look for money? And everybody raised their hand and, yeah, make more sales, control your costs. No, look at the trash can. And there you're going to find your savings.
Well, that was, it was one of the things that people didn't like me for when I was working for Disney, whether it was one of the fine dining areas or it was a fast food. But I always went through, the chefs always had to go through the trash cans, 2 different types of trash can. One, the trash can in the kitchen, what are they throwing away? What is it that they're not preparing properly? Because that's all impacts your gross profit margin, whatever's in that trash can. And then the trash can, when the plates came back, what wasn't eaten, like, what is it that is not doing well? And so we would always take a look at trash cans to determine not only cost of goods, but what is the client, what is the customer, what are they enjoying and what are they not enjoying? So yeah, trash cans always tell you a whole lot about what's going on in your operation. So the menu pricing concepts, we'll get into the overall umbrella of what you're to be thinking. The customer is in mind. Who is your customer? You may already have, in the restaurant business, you can go 2 ways. You can take a look at, this is the concept of my restaurant, whether it is a fast food, convenience food, fine dining, but you have already this concept. That's fine. That's what you're going to market. You may also have, well, these are the folks that live around me. These are the type of folks that I want to serve. And so you're looking at the individual and you're building your menu from the individuals that you want to serve. Either way is fine. You have to do it well, but you're either looking at the folks that you want to serve or you're looking at the concept of what your menu is, what your restaurant is. So the customer, though, both ways is always important. Your customer's perception of value. Again, we just got through talking about Lee and the New York City experience in Perkins. What is value to them? Not what is value to you, not what you think is important. What do they think is important? Because they're paying the money. Expensive versus inexpensive. Again, it comes back to who your restaurant is. What is it trying to do? What is it trying to say? And whether you go expensive or inexpensive, all over the place. So let's say that your menu has some very expensive menu items. That means you're going to have some sort of expertise in the dining, in the kitchen. That means you're paying more money for that expertise. For the higher quality of food that you're going to serve, your labor is going to increase. Whereas if it's a menu that's designed, good food, good presentation, absolutely wonderful plate, but it's not the steak and lobster that you're looking for. It's not the beef bourguignon. It's not the French cuisine. It is a good American food or whatever nationality you may be serving. So the expensive versus the expensive, you have to really take a look at that. Seasonality of items. Now, as we move forward in life, we're finding that more and more food is available year-round, just by the harvesting type of techniques, to shipping, to our ability to freeze. So these seasonal items are less and less. However, if your menu is built around quality and some very high-end items, you really want to take a look at the availability, whether it's available or not. There are some fish markets. When I say markets, I'm talking about the ability to get fish. There are some fish that are difficult to get during certain seasons. There are certain food items now, even though we have a world global farming system, sometimes there's asparagus can be at sometimes very hard to get, especially if there's crop damage. So again, seasonality of items, availability is important. Competitors' pricing. Those people who are in your industry that can offer the same item. And you have to be careful. If you would be a fast food type of restaurant, where you serve burgers, chicken sandwiches, and things like that. Don't just look at the other restaurants, because you're going to find that your supermarkets now have delis in them that will compete quite well with you. You're going to find that there's going to be food trucks that compete quite well with you. And you're going to also find the convenience stores and other types of operations that compete. So you have to take a look at who really is your competitor. Now, if you have a fine dining, then obviously the supermarkets and the convenience stores probably don't compete with you. But now you have another industry coming in where they are shipping quality food into the home, like Blue Plate. These types of operations, whether you have to cook it or it comes prepared, you just have to heat it up. Again, competitors. And then your projections. You have to be able, before you're open, before you really get into business, where you're getting ready to change your menu, you have to be able to project your gross profit margin. This is so important because you're going to be projecting just how much you can pay for, how much you can pay for yourself. So the projections, in other words, what are my sales going to be? What is my cost of goods going to be? What is my gross profit going to be? So we're looking at, this is a recipe cost card. In other words, this is for tuna salad. So you're going to make your own tuna salad in your restaurant. So we're looking at a recipe for tuna salad. So it's going to tell us the items that are in it: tuna, mayonnaise, celery, and onions. You're going to use a number 4 size can. That's about 89 to 101 ounces of tuna. The cost for that particular tuna is going to be $8.90. The can, you're going to use 1 can. So therefore, your cost for the amount of tuna you're going to use in this recipe is $8.90. 1 portion, 1 can, $8.90. The mayonnaise, you buy mayonnaise in a gallon, or you could. It's $9 a gallon. You're going to use ounces. You have determined by dividing the $9 by the 128 gallons or 128 ounces, you get 7 cents per ounce. You're going to use 8 ounces. Therefore, your cost for the mayonnaise is going to be 56 cents. Your celery comes in bunches. You pay $1.50 for that bunch. But chopped celery, you're going to determine the price is 30 cents. Again, how do you determine that? You have to chop up celery. You have to take a look at what that costs you for that cup. How many cups do you get out of that particular celery bunch? Since all celery is different, you may have to chop up 3 or 4 bunches of celery over time. But we're understanding we're going to use 1 cup at 30 cents. So therefore, our portion cost is 30 cents. Onions, you buy onions by the pound. It's $1.29 a pound. Again, you have to figure out your cup cost, which is now they've determined it's 25 cents. We're going to use 1 portion. Therefore, 25 cents is what you have used for the recipe. Total recipe, $10.01. That's what it costs you to make this size batch of tuna salad. Now we are going to use 4-ounce portions. And so in that, we use the 4-ounce portions. Now we can get 28 portions out of this batch that costs us $10.01. That means that the portion cost is going to be 36 cents. So when we are going to cost out a menu of a tuna sandwich, and we're putting in 4 ounces, we understand that that tuna costs us 36 cents. So you have costed out a recipe. One of the things is your recipe cost up to date. In other words, if the market fluctuates and tuna rises or tuna goes down, is your recipe cost up to date? Is your portion control consistent? Do you have an ice cream scoop? Do you have a certain type of spoon? But it's clear that your employees know this is exactly 4 ounces and this is how you put it on the sandwich. So this is extremely important when you're determining your cost of goods. Understand you drop half of this on the floor and now your cost isn't 10 cents, but it's now $15 and your menu item goes up. It's costing you 54 cents for the tuna salad instead of the 36 cents. So important to be able to make sure your kitchen is clutter-free and your employees are able to work cleanly and effectively. So now we have, the next one is a menu cost card. Now this is going to, here's the tuna salad. We're going to use 1 portion of tuna salad. Cost per unit, this should be 90 cents. Sorry for the error there, I didn't catch it. But your recipe unit cost is 90 cents for your tuna salad. This is from them having done a recipe cost card. Then their croissant. 1 croissant costs 25 cents. Unit cost is 25 cents. Lettuce, they use 1 ounce of lettuce, 1 ounce of lettuce, and so it's 6 cents is the cost. Again, the recipe unit cost is going to be 1 cent. Tomato slice, 1 tomato slice, 3 cents. And you're saying, do I need to know all of this? Yes, you do. If you're going to cost out your menu item so you know exactly what your cost of goods is. Yes, you do. Your packaging. And again, if you're going to have paper napkins, you're going to have to determine how many napkins does each individual get. You're going to have to put that into your cost because it's costing you because you paid for that napkin. So here we have packaging, 20 cents. And so now we find that the total menu item cost for this menu item, for you to serve a tuna salad sandwich, it costs you $1.63. Now our sale price is $4.95. That means we're going to subtract the cost of goods from the menu item, from the sale item. So we subtract 163 from 495, and our gross profit for the menu item is $3.32. Every time you sell this item, it's $3.32. I'm going to throw in something, and then I don't want you to remember it too much, food cost percentage. That means that your food cost percent is almost 33%. In other words, if we take a look at this $1.63 and this $3.32, the gross profit almost twice as much as the menu item. So the percentage is 32%. Now, we'll talk a little bit later about percentages, but understand percentages help you plan. You can't pay your bills with percentages. You pay your bills with $3.32. Is that enough for that particular menu item? And we find that with this menu item and all the other menu items you sell, it makes up your total gross profit margin, and it determines whether you have enough money to pay yourself and to pay your bills. I mentioned paying yourself and the fact that if you don't pay yourself, there's something wrong with your business model, and there's something wrong with your operation. It does not work if you don't pay yourself.
Andy, we have a question real quick. It says, Mr. Allison, the restaurant industry is currently navigating a difficult situation with higher prices, especially meats and some veggies as well. Some of them have double, triple, or even quadruple the prices, and some of them are suddenly difficult to find. What do you recommend? Transfer the increase in price to the final consumer, redo the menu, get cheaper ingredients, and in consequence, a less quality menu?
Well, that would be somebody who knows what they're talking about. I applaud their ability to start reasoning out how life is actually working out, and I need to stay in business. I need to keep my gross profit margin. So whoever that individual is, their experience, I just commend them. There are many ways to attack that, as they mentioned some. You have to be careful because, again, we go back to customer value and their perception of value. But one thing is to go ahead and keep the same price, but to diminish the size of the portion. So you look at the one thing I absolutely hate would be the ice cream industry. Now, all of ice cream, you used to buy it in a half-gallon containers. They have made it so that you think it looks like the same size half-gallon container. They have worked at shaping that box, that container, so that it looks like it's close, but you're only getting 48 ounces out of that now, and sometimes even less. And so that's part of what they're doing to combat higher costs, is they have lowered the amount of product in their particular item. That's you mentioned that, absolutely. You may need to look at that. You may need to look at items that do have a more stable appearance on the market where it's more readily available. You may have to change a few menu items to do that. Think back, this is, I think it's about 20, 25 years back now. At one point, the bakers were paying $11 for a 50-pound bag of flour, 11 bucks. Now, there came some problems in the industry, and they were paying $50 for the same 50-pound bag of flour. Wow. How do you meet that challenge when everything they make, or just about everything they make, includes flour? From their icings to their cakes, to their cookies, it doesn't make any difference. We found that there was a change. They used to sell a lot of quarter sheet cakes, half sheet cakes, started selling cupcakes. Cupcakes now become the rage of the day. Why? Well, because they can fit that cost that's going to help them keep their profit margin in the cupcake instead of the quarter sheet cake, which requires a whole lot more flour. So again, this idea of presentation, what are you going to serve, is always the issue. So that is, again, going back to the question, whoever asked that, it depends on your particular menu concept, who you're trying to serve, what you're trying to do. Because if you're reaching out to individuals, your marketer, individuals that watch their budget, they have to watch what they pay. You have a much more difficult time than if you're on a higher end. Somebody doesn't really care whether the menu item was $4 or $5. They don't care. They're going to buy it anyway. So you do have to look at your customer and their expectations and who they are, and determine. You still have to meet their needs. You still have to meet what they want to eat. You just may have to put it into a different package. You may have to lower the cost. And the idea of menu pricing, we're going to get into that. How do you menu price? How often do you increase your prices in on your menu, which is extremely important if you're going to keep your repeat customers. So great question. So this percentage here is just to help you understand the overall basis. So when you're putting together your menu, we want to take a look at percentages. I have a tool to do that, but I'm finding I'm running out of time, and so I just want to press on a little bit. And if we won't have time, but there are tools that you can write to the extension, and they will be glad to give you tools. Here is a difference. Now we're finding that we've raised the price to $5.29 from $4.95. The menu item cost still stays the same, but now you're bringing in, instead of $3.22, you're bringing in $3.66. So this shows you what happens. Your food cost percentage, instead of 33%, is now just it's a little under 31%. Again, this idea, this is what happens, but you have to know what your cost of goods is. You have to know, will this $5.29 sell, or have I just priced it off the menu for a good seller? So this is another concept here that we look at as far as raising prices. Here is, okay, we want to determine what should I sell the menu item for. So we've done our cost cards, we've done our recipe and our menu cost cards. We have $1.80. Our target food cost, again, this is just to get us into the ballpark. We want a 30% food cost. At this particular point, I guess I need to start looking at costs. Well, I'm just going to have to go on, just not enough time. Always include in your menu price the waste factor, the inflation factor. I have it at 7%. I would really recommend 10%. But now this item that's going to cost you $6, 30% times 180 we are going to have a $6 target food cost. We're going to add 42 cents by adding in the inflation factor, waste factor at 7%. So now our target price is $6.42. You have to include this inflation and waste factor. I'm even saying in today's market, add 10% to your menu item because you're going to drop a burger. You're going to, you reach into your case of lettuce that you bought, 24 heads, and 2 of them were rotten. That changes your gross profit margin. So you have to include this 7 to 10% waste factor into your pricing. Now you take a look at the competition, those folks that you believe are competing in the same market, no matter if it's a supermarket, convenience store, another restaurant, makes no difference. And you take a look at their prices. Now you're saying, well, I can jump in there. Of course, who are you and what do you want to do? But you can jump in there at $6.95. That's just where you feel comfortable. Your actual food cost now is at 25%. Again, so important to understand that your cost of goods and what it's costing you. So the $6.95 is subtracted from the $180, and of course now you bring $5.15 to this menu item. Healthy product coming from there. So now we come to, let me find my marker here. So now just a quick change. You can look at this. We've changed some menu items. We've changed the menu price, and we've changed which is going to impact how many you sell a day. But we had at one point the total gross profit was $234. Now we've raised it to $254. You now have an additional approximately $20 to pay for your bills and to pay yourself. So the idea of understanding your menu, the pricing between the menu items, and what is it that you want to be known for, what's your signature recipe, those all go into pricing your menu. So we come to equipment needs here. And again, this is the capacity of equipment is so important for you to understand. You do have to walk through the process for each item. How am I going to cook it? What equipment do I need? Whether it's going to be a cooking or even a cooking utensil or a holding pan, it doesn't make any difference. You need to determine your equipment, and your equipment is determined by your menu. The number of customers you're going to have, what size equipment do you need, the batch size that you're going to prepare, production time. Again, if the larger piece of equipment or the more sophisticated equipment, it cuts down on your production time. That's labor, that's money. Kitchen size, what can you fit into that kitchen? You'll be surprised, some of the finest restaurants that were in Los Angeles many years back, they were just in these absolutely ridiculous small places because they wanted all of their space on the floor where they actually have people sitting down. And so they devised, and they were very good at determining how to make small space work with what they need to do. And then again, the dollars available. What can you afford? Can you afford 2 double fryers, or can you only afford 1 single double fryer? It all depends on what you have to start with. And understand, when you open up, doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up. It just means that's what you had to start with to get this operation up and going. So labor needs, again, you come to positions in the restaurant, all the people that you need to make this happen. Job descriptions, so that they understand. So when the training comes, you know exactly what you're telling them. You have put this operation together, completely together, so it's cohesive, it works together. It also is going to tell you, the menu is going to tell you what kind of skill is required. Can you get some guy that can manage a kitchen versus a chef that absolutely has great skills in producing fine product? What is it that you need? But your menu is going to determine the skill level required. It's going to determine the time of preparation front and back. That means labor. That means cost. So again, your menu is going to determine everything that you're going to do. And of course, the menu determines the amount of labor with the amount of people that you're going to serve, labor at any one time. So these, again, your menu really determines the labor cost that you're going to have. This is a real simple, it's a labor cost. We find that the first cook comes in at 5, it works till 1:30. Now you get an idea how many people you have at one time. Again, people are eating, and so you have the majority of your folks between that 12 and 2 time period. And again, as it's just a tool here. This is what this is a tool to help you look and plan out your labor, because this labor is absolutely costing you money. So your action plan, well, when you start with your menu items, the concept of who your customer is, define the cost items on your menu. You have to know how much your menu costs you to sell. It also defines your labor and equipment needs. It is you also want to make sure that you are keeping track of your sales, your cost of goods, so you can determine your profit margin. These are important tools, KPIs, key performance indicators. These you should know in your sleep. If somebody wakes you out just out of a deep sleep stupor, and they ask you, what is your cost of goods? You ought to know that right then and there. If you don't, you're susceptible to having problems because you don't know the numbers. Again, the restaurant business is a numbers game. Update a master's ingredient list. Haven't talked much about that, but this is a list that you make up so that you understand how much does every item that you buy cost, from salt, pepper, produce, dry stock, cans of beans, whatever it may be, but everything is listed, and you understand to the unit that you prepare your menus with, you understand the cost per unit of measure. Know the cost of goods as well as your sales, absolutely. Map out the menu seasonally or quarterly. Again, you're going to have price increases. The individual mentioned that. You have to be careful how you do your price increases, and you may have a little more profit margin there when you first introduce a price increase. Why? Because the market will catch up with you. Your costs will catch up with you. So if you do have a little bit extra profit, you should, because the market will eventually catch up to you. That's why profit margin is so important. Understand when you're costing out, let's say that you're going to have a cup of coffee. That cup, you want to include the coffee price, the cost of the coffee is important. Also understand, you're going to charge everybody for 1 stir, 2 packets of sugar, 1 creamer. Why? Because you're going to make sure whoever is taking the most of those accessories, you're going to account for them. You happen to make a little bit more profit on the guy that takes it black and doesn't want anything else. You have to have those inclusive costs when you're developing your menu. So on our, yes, sir.
And we have another question about, I mean, in your experience right now with COVID, with the pandemic, I guess we have new target costs, right? I mean, where can we find out if we are above the industry, under the industry percentages, you know, regarding food costs, labor costs, maybe rent or some overhead? We don't have definite percentages, right? But, or where can we find more information if we are an outliner or we are inside the industry?
Okay, well, let's look at that. One, there are
a taco shop, for example.
Yeah, there are industry experts that you should know about in your industry. So the NRA, the National Restaurant Association, that is a tool for you. There's a lot of free information on there. You do have to pay a membership if you're going to have access to everything. But there are these industry experts. And so I would Google, excuse me, I would Google out helps with food cost. I would Google out tools for controlling food cost. You'll be surprised at what you come up with. The internet's amazing. But in that, I do want to take a look at a tool here, and I'm looking to get out of this.
Yes, I would guess each industry would have its own percentages, its own range of how effective they are, or they need to adjust something price-wise, cost-wise, labor costs.
There are, and I'm looking to get out of this slide presentation. Michael, how do I get out of the slide presentation?
Just press escape and you should be out.
Yeah.
Click on the screen and you should be out, but escape.
Okay. So now we have, this is that
yes, we can see it.
So now this is some of the industry standards that we have. These are still basically good. Again, because of COVID, they are changing, but if you can measure in, this is a good tool. You can write the extension, they can give you this tool. Let's say that your sales are $2,000. So there's $2,000, all right? Now we put in our cost of goods. So let's say for that time frame, our cost of goods was $500. Now we're finding that our percentage is 25%. How does that fit with the fine dining, casual dining? Well, it's good. It's absolutely wonderful. Now we come to payroll. In payroll, we had $700 in payroll. Now it's at 35%. Well, we're a little bit high at this particular point. Total payroll is going to be $700. And so we come to prime costs, and for some reason it didn't go through, but this is $1,200. Prime cost is your cost of goods and your payroll. That's your prime cost. So now you're at 60%. If your prime cost, your labor and your food cost, if they are within these ranges, you are doing well, because the rest of your gross profit margin should pay for the rest of your expenses if you don't have some anomaly, you don't have something that's wildly crazy like your rent. So at 60%, you see that you're finding that you are below the industry standards. So you would be doing well at 60% prime cost, which is your cost of goods and your total payroll. Then as you fill in your other things, your direct operating expenses, your phone, your lights, your heat, and let's say it's $300 there. So a little bit high. We come down to, after all these different things, we come down, the income before taxes was $500, 25%. You can see these industry standards here. You're well above it. But this is available so you can plug in your numbers to determine what what is going on. So this is an important tool, but these are some of the industry standards, and these sites on the internet will help you determine what these numbers should be for you. These numbers are changing. Again, when I go out to eat and I take a look at the menu price, I'm knowing exactly what's going on because I know they're having to survive this particular problem that you're having. Again, still the food industry is still one of the greatest ways to make money and to have a good business. So here, just to go this, I know we're out of time. These are the key performance indicators, the KPIs. You should know these in your sleep. Your profit per seat, how much for every sale you have, how much labor do you have to spend? Your food costs, obviously, we've talked about. Sales per square foot. This is square footage for the entire operation, also for your floor. The seat turnover, how many times do you turn your seats over? And of course, your guest check average, so important. In other words, for every person that's coming in, how much money do they spend when they are in your restaurant? So if you have a $7 guest check average and you know I need more money, now you start working. How do you increase their purchase when they're there? Do you have a dessert? Do you have something that they can add to that gives them something bonus? Do you have glasses with your name on it that you can sell? Whatever it is, but you want to increase that guest check average. Just to recap, the menu, so important. The menu determines everything that is going on in your restaurant. It all starts with the menu. If your menu, if it's not ironclad, it doesn't have enough gross profit margin in it, it doesn't meet the needs of your customers, the expectations, your menu is your downfall. You have to prepare the menu. That's just a necessity. And so, again, we come to the end here. Juan and Mike, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. We're going to send a copy of the presentation to everybody that participated. And we want to invite you to visit our website at extension.unr.edu. This video is going to be available probably in a couple of days. But in the meantime, you can visit the other subject matters in finance, marketing, operations, and management. You can have more insights about financial projections and marketing ideas for your restaurant. We had another question about ratios. You know, how useful are financial ratios in the restaurant, or just for big companies?
Well, again, it's a numbers
About
game.
Inventory and all that stuff. Yes.
Again, it's all numbers. I have to emphasize that if there is not enough gross margin inside of your menu to pay yourself and to pay your bills, you are going to fail. I mean, that is a slam dunk, white and black type of statement. You will fail if there's not enough gross profit margin in your menu. Who determines how much gross profit margin is in the menu? Well, the owner does. Why? Because of the price he sets and because of the cost it takes to present that menu item to the customer. So therefore, there has to be that gross profit margin. How do you keep all of that in line? It would be like if you own a car. Well, do I need to put gas in the car? Well, obviously you do. That's something you need to do. Do I need to change the oil? You absolutely do. Do I need to make sure there's water in the radiator? You do. Do every once in a while you clean out the inside of the car? Do you wash the car? You do. These are all things that have to come with owning a car. The same thing with owning a restaurant. You have to do those things for it to be in the condition and for it to work the way you want it to. You have to take a look at these ratios. Now, can you get by the seat of your pants? Listen, the majority of people in the restaurant business get by the seat of their pants. Understood that. But now, if you're looking to actually be a good business person, that's a different story. Now you have to do the things. You have to understand the ratios. You have to understand your seating capacity, how many times you turn that restaurant over, what is your profit margin, when do I plan my next menu change, when do I take a look at my menu and start moving menu prices up or down so that I can get the most profit out. Yeah, you have to do that. And so again, we come back to, yes, you need good food, need good presentation, good atmosphere, good wait staff, but it's all for naught if you
and
don't.
The interesting part about the whole menu concept is that we can do this before opening, before getting a license, before getting worried about how to open an LLC. We can actually have all these on paper, plan on it, and walk in, open the doors in a more comfortable situation. Let's put it that way.
So for those who are just starting out, that is absolutely dynamite information. This should be done because and it should be done really before you get into that process of opening your business, looking for a place to have your location, all of that. This can be done early. You can certainly tweak it, no doubt about it. You can change it, but you do need to have that core already done. Now, for those who are already in business, you already have your hands full. Your time is already maxed out. You still need to go back and do this if you haven't done this, because for you, well, just for instance, if you are away from your home and there's a storm in your area and many of the houses are destroyed, you don't know what the condition of your house is in. That's great anxiety. For a restaurant owner, not to know his cost, not to know if he's going to have enough money to pay his bills and to pay himself, that's a lot of anxiety and stress. Business is made to win. You need to do the things to win in business. And in the restaurant industry, they're very defined. It's very clear cut. So again, it's a numbers game.
It is a numbers game, and that's very important. The time factor and dedication. I usually teach the accounting and finances and the financial tools, profit and loss, like you show it, is a fantastic tool, but it doesn't come together just by itself. So you need to plan how to collect information, how to organize information, and then you can use the information. So that's a great topic. It takes time to get organized so you can make good decisions.
And of course, the restaurant industry, you're either going to manage your business or the business is going to manage you. You have a choice in that, and to be disciplined and to do the right things is always a necessity. That's really the successful formula in life, is to be disciplined and to do the right things. And so it applies to the restaurant industry as well.
I love the expression that you mentioned. If you're heading north, why take the southbound highway? This doesn't make sense at all. But thank you very much, Andy, for your time. I think we answered all the questions. Any other thoughts, Mike?
Andy, great presentation. I think that all the points that were addressed today are just paramount for somebody considering getting into the food business. And for those who are actually in it, maybe like you said, if you don't manage your business, the business is going to run all over you. And I can't think of any other business that's especially true in, because the food service business is very fast, right? It's one of our fastest businesses. You have to be on top of things because things can go sideways very quick in the restaurant industry. Isn't that correct?
It's a now industry. In other words, when you receive your product in, your fresh product, your meat, your cheese, you need to use it now. And so the inventory is extremely important. It's now. Your customers coming in, it's now. What you do to bring them back, it's now. Yeah, it's a now industry. It happens right away.
Yep. And if you mess up, the customer may not be back. That's a really tricky part. We have so many substitute products in this industry that if you're having a bad night or if you have a bad employee, it could really have some dire consequences for your restaurant business.
It can, and of course, we go back to my friend Lee in New York. He's still going to continue to go down to the city and enjoy the life in the city. He may not be going back to Perkins. And so we come to the fact that, did you meet your customers' expectations? Another part of the equation that has to be in place.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate all your guidance and your experience in this topic area. Thank you for joining us today and for presenting to us. And I know that this information is going to be highly sought after in our virtual classroom.